Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Well Off Podcast. I am George Masri, the host of the show, and today I interviewed Dave Dubeau, who is a real estate investor and a person who teaches others how to raise capital for real estate investing purposes through the 5-step money partner formula. So we actually went through the 5 different steps. We talked about dealing with people that we know rather than going out there and just trying to find random people on Facebook, which I see a lot of today. People are just kind of posting deals. Dave says that that's actually not the greatest way to generate interest from people. So if you want to find out, if you're interested in learning about how to raise capital effectively, this is a really good introduction to that. And we will cover a lot of good things in this episode. So have a listen. And as always, I'd like to remind you that if you want some more real estate content, you can always go to welloff.ca/report and download a bunch of free stuff. And I'd love to connect with you. I'm constantly looking for opportunities in the Golden Horseshoe area, 4 to 6 units. That's my forte. That's the area that I focus on. So if you're interested in that type of property, reach out to me, book a call. Let's make it happen. And I hope you'll enjoy the show. Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I am here with Dave Dubeau, who is a real estate entrepreneur, author, speaker, based out of British Columbia. He's telling me it started snowing already, and right now we're recording at the end of October. He began his real estate career in 2003, real estate investing career, I should say. He did 18 deals in 18 months, and now he focuses on multifamily properties. So Dave, welcome to the show.
George, great to be here. Thanks for having me, buddy.
My pleasure. So, Dave, I like to start off by asking you about your childhood. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and 1 or 2 things you remember from then.
My God, George, you're ambushing me. Look at all the gray hair I got in my head. You expected me to remember my childhood, for crying out loud?
Oh, you got to remember something, Dave. Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah, childhood. I grew up in a very small town in northeastern British Columbia, and our claim to fame for my town was we were featured on a CBC hit show. Unfortunately, the name of the show was Village on a Diet, and that came out a few years ago. So my hometown is well known for having a bunch of fatzos in it, basically, I guess.
Really? Interesting. I didn't expect you to say that. Is it is it bad?
We had a grand total of 600 people living in that little village when I was growing up there, and it's ballooned, I guess, in more ways than one, up to about 1,000 people now. So it's still a pretty small town.
Wow, that's interesting. So there was like an obesity problem in the town, or are you joking?
No, they actually did do a CBC show called that. They just happened to pick that town for whatever reason. I don't think people are generally fatter there than anywhere else. It just seemed to be a good spiel for a show. So,
all right, sounds good. All right, so let's just dive right in, Dave. I know you do a lot of investing, and you've got your own podcast and all that. So let's talk about some multifamily stuff. Is that am I right? That's what you're focusing on these days?
Yeah, well, George, actually, you know what? I might be one of the weirdest real estate guests you've had on your podcast, because I kind of suck at investing in real estate per se. So years ago, I figured out I'm not really good, or I don't really enjoy dealing with tenants or toilets. I'm about as handy as a foot. And I enjoy the wheelie dealy side of real estate, but I don't enjoy anything after that. So these days, I focus more on partnering up with people who are really good at what they do, and I bring capital to the table. So I'm a very hands-off, passive kind of investor these days.
Really? Okay. So that's interesting. That's the first time I actually interview someone who's more of a passive partner. So let's talk about that then. Is that kind of what you focus on? Because I know you have like an education component as well, where you teach people about partnerships. Are you teaching people how to be passive partners or active partners?
I'm teaching people how to find their own passive partners. So basically, George, my main bread and butter business outside of investing in real estate is I have a boutique marketing agency, and we help mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs do all the marketing stuff they need to do to attract investors and raise capital for their deals.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't we talk about that then? Let's talk about what I know you're not going to give away all your secrets and whatnot, but
You
maybe
know
we
what,
can,
George? I'm
yeah,
happy to give away as much as you asked for here today. It's all about delivering value and education. So
okay,
anything you want to know, my friend.
perfect. Okay, so how do you start off? Let's say somebody's looking for some help there to raise capital. What would be the first step in that process?
Okay, so I would imagine that most of your viewers and listeners are Canadian. Would that be a
That's
fair
correct.
assumption?
Yeah.
Okay, so where we want to start is with people who we already know, people who we have a pre-existing relationship with. So one of the big mistakes I see a lot of people making when they first start thinking about raising capital is they rush out on Facebook and they rush out on social media and they kind of make a big splash and say, hey, here I am. I've got great deals. Give me some money. Okay. So in theory, that sounds good. But in practicality, that's very, very stupid. All right. And they're stupid for two reasons. Stupid reason number one is the fact that, I mean, if we think about it, in order for people to invest with you, George, chances are they're going to need to know you, like you, and trust you with their money. Would you agree?
Yes, of course.
All right. So when we're going out to the great unwashed masses, the general public, they don't know us, they don't like us, and they certainly don't trust us with their money. Does that make sense? So we're starting from scratch. So it's just kind of, it's like throwing a bunch of you know what against the wall, hoping something sticks, and it very, very rarely does. And the other big issue that we have as Canadians, if we do that, is your not so friendly provincial securities commission. So every province has one. They're all pretty nasty. They're all there to really protect Joe Public against evil scam artists. So basically it's illegal for you and I as mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs to raise capital from the general public unless we are licensed to do so. So like a stockbroker, mortgage broker, financial planner, these kind of people that are licensed to do it, or unless you jump through a lot of hoops and regulations to get an offering memorandum or set yourself up in a specific corporate situation, those kind of things, which is kind of beyond where most people are, especially when they get started with raising capital. So those are the two big reasons why you don't want to just go out to everybody and anybody. And instead, what I always recommend is start with a target group of prospective investors. And what I like to tell people, George, is all of us, I firmly believe, have our first $1 million in capital right here, right in your phone, right within the contacts that you already have. And then the beautiful thing is, when it comes to know, like, and trust, the people that you already have that pre-existing relationship with, they already know you, they already like you. Now we just have to work on that third aspect, and that is to get them to trust us as professional, that we're a professional real estate entrepreneur, and that we're going to do a good job with their capital. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's step one. Looking
Step one.
behind you
Step
there.
one, laser focus in on a target group of prospective investors. I recommend, ideally 150 to 200 people. Everybody always freaks out about that, but here's the trick, George. Don't try to think up 150 to 200 people. Export all of your contacts from everywhere, from your cell phone, from your email contacts, from your social media contacts. Get them all into an Excel spreadsheet. Chances are you'll probably have 1,000 or 2,000 people there, and then whittle it down to 200 people that you're really going to focus on. That would be step number one. Create that target group of prospective investors.
Perfect. Okay, I see behind you there on the camera that you've got a 5-step money partner formula. So that was step one, I'm assuming, because we kind of talked about
That
it.
was most of step one. The rest of step one, George, is sorry, I laugh because I remember my own clumsy foray into raising capital years ago where I screwed this up. The rest of step one is once we've got that target group, we need to reconnect with them on a personal level first before we start talking real estate, before we start talking business. Because another big mistake I see people making is they rush out and they just say, hey, it's Dave. I've got a great deal. Have you got any cash? Right. And that could be the first thing somebody's heard from you in years. And it's a very clumsy way to do it. It's not very nice. It's not effective at all. It kind of reminds me of, hopefully I don't offend anybody, but people that get into network marketing,
Yeah.
and we all know those folks, right? Some of us have been those folks. And people get into network marketing, make a big splash. Hey, come check out my thing, blah, blah, blah. And then, 99 times out of 100, they fizzle out and it dies off and you never hear anything else from them. So we don't want to have that kind of impression. We want to reconnect with people on a personal level first and then transition the conversation over into real estate investing. So what we suggest, what we teach people to do is to do a simple 3-step warm-up campaign. This is done by email, ideally through an email autoresponder. So you get all 200 people in your system. You create one email that goes out to all 200 people all at the same time. I know, George, you know all about this because you're actively in business yourself. You got the podcast, you got all this stuff. But for most people, that's kind of new. So you get an email autoresponder, get everybody in there, and then you keep communicating with them. And you break the ice first with a warm-up campaign, very warm, very friendly, encouraging people to get back to you. So what I suggest is way before your time, George, but way back in the day before the interweb even existed, people used to actually write letters, right? They used to take the time to write letters and send letters. Well, same idea here. And my Aunt Nadine used to write a letter every year, big long Christmas letter, and send it out with the Christmas cards every year. So that was how we kind of kept in touch because there was no social media, long distance calls were too expensive, etc. Same idea. We're going to do a modern version of that using email, catching people up on what we've been up to for the last 3, 4, 5 years, the family, the kids, the spouse, the job, just as if kind of, if you imagine, if you bumped into somebody at line at Starbucks or Timmy's and you hadn't seen each other for a while and they said, hey, George, what have you been up to? And you kind of had a one-sided conversation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's kind of the same thing as like in real estate as a realtor. If I just called people and said, hey, do you want to sell your house? I don't think I'll be selling a lot of homes because that's not how people want to be communicated with. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And I like the fact that you're incorporating a bit of technology in the strategy with the email campaigns and all of that. So that's a great way to start building that those relationships.
Yeah. And I might be an old fart there, George, but I do appreciate technology and automation very, very much.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Awesome. Okay. So let's jump to step 2.
All right. So George, now that we've done that, the next step is to be ready to go with something to show people when they put up their hand and they ask for more information. So my big goal for folks, George, is that instead of chasing after investors, instead of running after them desperately looking for capital, let's attract people to us. Let's get them to put up their hands and say, hey, you know what, George? You got my curiosity up. Tell me more about your deals. Because that conversation, I know you know this from your years in business, that conversation is a complete 180 from us desperately, creepily chasing after people, trying to hit them up for cash. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely.
So the next step number 2 is make sure you got what I call your $1 million investor presentation ready to go. And what I recommend for people is that they use a slide deck presentation. That would be a PowerPoint or a Keynote if you're an Apple user. Put together a well-designed, well-structured slide deck presentation. And that way, especially today, as we're recording this, we're kind of getting into the second wave of COVID. There's a whole, isolation thing going on. So most people aren't going to want to meet with you face-to-face. So meet with them on Zoom, just like we're having this conversation. Show them your presentation, go through it on Zoom. You can do it one-on-one. You can do it small group presentations. Very, very effective. So you need to have a well-structured, well-organized, well-put-together slideshow presentation to show people.
Okay. All right. So was that step 3 or step 2?
That was step 2, actually. Make sure you got your presentation ready to go.
Okay. So the part about having the deal, that's coming up later because I thought I caught that for step 2. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, here's the thing. So that's a very good point, George. Some people say, just find a good deal and the money will find you. Have you heard that expression before?
I have heard it, yeah.
I call BS to that.
Hmm.
So my opinion, when it comes to the chicken and the egg, which should come first, the deal or the money, my advice is the money always comes first.
Hmm.
My goal for people is for them to have a number of investors lined up, ready to go in the wings. So people that have put up their hand and said, hey, George, you know what? I'm in. When you've got a deal, let me know. I want to have first dibs. So we want to have a number of those people lined up, ready to go in the wings, and then go make offers on deals because we know that we got the capital to back us up. We can go out, we can make more aggressive offers, we can negotiate a little bit more aggressively because we know we've got the capital to back us up.
Okay, so to recap step 2 here, you should have an investor presentation, a well-designed PowerPoint or keynote.
Yeah.
And then what would be step 3 in this case?
Step number 3 is where we kick things up with the marketing side of things. So what I call being edutaining and motivating. Being edutaining and motivating. So marketing, it's not all about, hey, buy now, invest now, invest now, invest now. No. What we want to do is we want to send out educational and hopefully slightly entertaining information out to our list of a couple of 100 people. Keep top of mind with them. Give them the gist of what it is and what we're doing and why it makes sense. And keep in mind that chances are, and I know this is hard for a lot of people to understand, but chances are most of the people on your list are not real estate weirdos like us. And I say that with love and affection. We are real estate weirdos. And I hate to say it to you, George, you're extra weird because you not only invest in real estate, you are a realtor and you got a podcast all about real estate. So you are immersed in this literally 24/7. However, most of our prospective investors aren't. They're regular, what I call civilians, right? They're whatever they do for a living. They're punching the clock, or they're self-employed, or they're a union worker, whatever it is that they're doing. They've got that. They've got their family. They've got their outside activities, their weekends. That's their life. Real estate is not part of their life. In fact, 95% of Canadians have never purchased an investment property. Their own house doesn't count. I'm talking about a revenue property. So you got to keep that in mind. Most of the people, most of your prospective investors are not super into real estate. If we get too much into the weeds, if we get too much into the details, if we get too much into the data, that's a big mistake, especially analytical type people make. They're just going to gloss over, they're going to get bored, and they're going to forget about you. So what we want to do is provide bite-sized chunks of edutaining marketing. Edutaining marketing, a little bit of education, a little bit entertaining. I like to compare it to the old magazine Reader's Digest. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that was out years ago. I think it still exists. And it's a magazine designed for grown-ups, but it's written at a 13-year-old reading level. So that doesn't mean that people that read the magazine are dumb. It just means that it's written at a level that's super easy for people to consume, super easy for people to understand. So we want to do the same idea with our edutaining marketing and keep it light, keep it pretty high level, give people the gist of what we're doing. And basically what they want to know is that we know what we're talking about.
Sure.
Does that make sense, George?
Yep, absolutely.
And then you want to make sure that it's motivating. So we're always encouraging people to take action. It always has to have a call to action. And here's, if I could wave the magic wand for everybody who's looking to raise capital, what we want to accomplish, we don't want to try and sell a deal through our marketing. We want to sell people on the idea of booking an appointment with us to talk about our deals.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Getting that calendar filled, getting that those Zoom calls going, meeting with people in person or online, and showing them our investor presentation, getting them lined up, getting them signed off on expressions of interest or letters of intent, and building up that group of investors ready to go in the wings.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. Not selling, not getting somebody to buy off the email or whatever, but just setting up that appointment so you can have that face-to-face.
Yeah, it's asking way too much to try and sell a deal via an email, just cold like that. So that's why the whole goal is let's get together, let's talk about it, let's see if it's a good fit for you, let's see if you're a good fit for me too, right? So it's a two-way street. You don't necessarily want to be working with everybody. But
Sure.
again, that's the whole first step, that whole thing. We want to motivate them to book an appointment.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, what email clients or email campaign management systems do you use or do you recommend?
So the one we recommend to our clients is Get Response. Get Response. And I think it's 15, $20 a month. I can't remember. I have zero financial interest in that organization. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. It's just the program that we found is the simplest and the easiest to use. And here's a big tip for you, George. They've got a free version or a free trial version, and they got the paid version. If you're going to do this, jump right into the paid version. It's only $15 a month. It's not that big of a deal. You can do the 30-day trial, but the challenge is you get what you pay for. So the deliverability is much lower in these free trial type things. I know MailChimp has a free version as well. However, your deliverability is very, very low. That means that if you got 200 people on your list, chances are a good chunk of them are not going to receive the emails if the deliverability is not good.
So are you saying that if the deliverability is low, a lot of the emails are going to go to spam or to whatever, like that kind of thing?
Or they might not even be sent.
Might not even be sent. I
Yeah.
understand.
So that's why get the paid version right off the get-go.
Got it. That's interesting. I wasn't even aware of that. That's cool. Okay. So what's step number 4 then, Dave?
All right. So now we've got our target group. We've broken the ice with them. We've got our $1 million investor presentation ready to rumble. We've started some of this marketing stuff, whether it's online or offline. I didn't even mention some of the marketing tactics, but video logs and electronic newsletters are very, very effective. And then step number 4 is we want to create an aura of credibility, expertise, and trustworthiness around ourselves. All right. So we want to be seen as the real estate expert in the eyes of our prospective investors. Very, very important. So again, we're focusing on a target group of people who already know us. So they already know us and like us. But now we want to work on that trust factor. Are they going to trust us with $100,000 of their money for a real estate deal? That's what it really all boils down to. So step number 4 is creating trust and credibility, being seen as an authority in the eyes of your investors. You want to be famous as a real estate expert to those 200 people. That's who we're really focusing on. We're not competing with Robert Kiyosaki. We're not competing with, the rock stars of your local areas as real estate experts. We just really want to be seen as an expert in the eyes of our target group. And lots of different ways to do this, George. Some simple ways is when you're meeting with people, dress the part. So dress up. Even if you're doing a Zoom meeting, dress up, look sharp, business casual. That's going to give the other person respect. It's going to get respect back from them to you. So that's one big tip. Another one is be able to speak effectively and succinctly, simply about your real estate investing strategy and the market that you really focus on. So you can explain it simply so that a 13-year-old could understand it. Again, we're not saying that the other person's a 13-year-old, but we're saying keep it super simple. If you use that as your parameter, if an average 13-year-old can get it, you're definitely on track. And then all sorts of other things that you can do there. Make sure that you've got an investor-focused website. I mean, these days, in order to be seen as a credible authority, you need to have your own website. You can do all sorts of different things like get interviewed on podcasts. This is a great way to be seen as an authority as well. You can do other things like speak at your local real estate investment clubs. All these kind of things. There's low cost and high cost, different ways to be seen as an expert, but start with the easy stuff first.
Sounds good, Dave. You mentioned dressing the part. You said business casual. Why not just business?
Or business. That's cool, man. I like to say business casual because I like to just grab the blazer and throw it on.
Whatever you're wearing.
Under the blazer, I've got a V-neck T-shirt. So
yeah. Okay. All right. And the final step, Dave, in your 5-step money partner formula.
Awesome. Thanks, George. Well, the final step is once you've got an investor or two on the go, you can start the snowball effect of getting more investors through testimonials and referrals, right? Because once you're doing a good job for somebody, chances are that person knows other people who could invest if it made sense for them. So you want to proactively get testimonials. I always suggest video testimonials are best. And you also want to proactively go after referrals instead of just passively waiting for them. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. You definitely want to get warm referrals. You don't want to be just getting names and phone numbers and cold calling people. That defeats the whole purpose. You want to get a warm introduction, and you want to get video testimonials that you can put up on your website that you can use as part of your marketing, because what other people say about you is at least 10 times more convincing than anything you can say about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So just out of curiosity, kind of a selfish question, but I can do it since it's my podcast.
Yes.
As a realtor, would you suggest that I would have a separate website altogether for investment purposes if I'm trying to raise capital, or should I just have an all-encompassing website?
That is an awesome question, George. I would highly recommend that you have a completely separate website for communicating with your investors. So, George, you might need 2 websites, 3 websites, 4 websites. So you're a busy guy. You're a realtor, you're a podcaster, you're an active investor, and you're looking to raise capital. I think we should have separate websites for every major thing we're doing. And raising capital is a major thing. And here's why it's important. So your realtor website is really designed for communicating with prospective property sellers and prospective buyers. Would you agree?
Yes.
That's really, so that's one thing. That's a completely different target market than prospective money partners for you for your deals. Probably. There might be some overlap there. But here's the challenge. If we try to just add on another tab to your website, investors click here, that's a different target demographic. That's different communications. That's different verbiage. That's different everything. So these days, as you know, it's so easy, it's so inexpensive to get multiple websites. Have a different website for each thing that you're doing.
Gotcha. I like it, Dave. I like the advice.
Awesome. I'm glad you do.
Yeah, so that's a summary of your 5-step money partner formula. So just very quickly, let's recap. Step 1, speak to the people you know first instead of going out there and trying to speak to strangers or people on Facebook or whatever else. Step 2, have a presentation, PowerPoint, well designed. Step 3, your marketing. So you want to be educational and entertaining. And also try to work on getting appointments rather than just selling deals through your marketing. Step 4, create a brand, create that trustworthiness, that image of expertise. And then step 5, collect some testimonials and referrals so that you can keep things going rather than always trying to generate fresh new money partners.
Exactly, because that's the lowest hanging fruit. So if people actually do this, George, this is the ultimate shortcut to raising capital, because most people are talking about, if you hear other people talking about raising capital, quite often it's old school stuff. Pick up the phone, dial for dollars. Terrible advice. Or get out there, network and schmooze and do all that kind of stuff. That's okay if you're good at that, but a lot of people aren't. And nowadays, it's very, very limited opportunities that we have for doing that anyhow. So if you follow this process, you're going to avoid getting in crap with the Securities Commission. And I think everybody would rather stay out of jail. And you're going to go after the lowest hanging fruit first. Because think about it. People that are in our sphere of influence, people that we already have that pre-existing relationship with, they already know us and they already like us. Now we just have to find out of that group who could afford to invest with us if it made sense for them, and how do we increase our trustworthiness with them about investing their capital. So it really simplifies things versus going out there and just kind of shotgun approach to everybody, trying to figure out who's got money and who can invest with me and how can I do this without going to jail, right? So
yeah, for sure.
That's why we want to focus on this. This is absolutely the best way to get started with raising capital that I know of.
Awesome. Great, Dave. I like it. I like everything you've shared here. So before we go on to the next section, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, if people want to find out more about this, if it's okay, George, they can grab a free copy of my book, Money Partner Formula, a PDF copy of that. I'll trade my book to them for their name and their email address. That'll bring them into my world. You can find out a little bit more about what I do there. So if they're interested in that, they can go to investorattractionbook.com. And I spared no expense putting up the URL here,
Awesome.
investorattractionbook.com.
Cool. We'll put it in the show notes as well. So, Dave, let's go on to the next section, which is the random five. I'm going to ask you
Sure.
5 random questions. You're going to tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
That
Number
could be
1.
dangerous.
Sorry?
That could be dangerous.
Yeah, I know. People always get nervous with this part. So, number 1, an app mysteriously appears on your phone that does something amazing. What does it do?
It sheds automatically 30 pounds off my physique.
Awesome. What a great app. Number 2, would you travel to a foreign country all by yourself?
Of course I would. In fact, George, I lived overseas for 14 years as a young guy. I traveled around Mexico and Central America for 2.5 years, lived in Costa Rica for 10 years. So
Awesome.
been there,
Cool.
done that.
Yeah, good for you. What's the spiciest thing you've ever eaten?
A ghost pepper.
You just had a ghost pepper right there, just on the spot?
I had a very tiny
Did
piece
you?
of a ghost pepper, and that was enough for me, man. I
Was
like
that?
spicy stuff, but that's, I like tasty, spicy stuff,
Yeah.
not just insanity for insanity's sake.
Was that during your travels?
I don't even know. I think that was some farmer's market thing.
Oh, okay.
Had some of these things.
All right. Number 4, would the world be a better or worse place if everyone looked the same?
Far worse. Especially if everybody looked like me, it would be disturbing, to say the least.
All right. All right. And number 5, what success principle do you live by?
The success principle I live by is persistence. Persistence, my friend. Fall down, get up, get up, get up, get up. Just keep getting up. It's all
Keep
about
getting up.
persistence.
I like it, Dave. All right. So that concludes the show. Do you want to share just briefly, because I'm going to put it in the show notes, but how people can reach you? What's the best way?
Yeah. So again, the best way is go grab a copy of the book, investorattractionbook.com. Give me your name, your email address. I'll give you my book. That way we'll be connected. You can find out the different events and workshops and whatnot that we put on. You can find out a little bit more about our services if you're looking for some help getting this whole process put together. That's what we do. We have a boutique marketing agency, but that's the best first step, George.
Awesome, Dave. Well, thanks for sharing everything, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you very much, my friend, and keep being well off and helping the rest of us to be well off as well.
Thank you. Thanks once again for listening to another episode of the Well Off Podcast. Just want to remind you that if you do appreciate the content, all I ask is that you comment, maybe like it if you can on the platform that you're listening to it on, and finally share it with friends and family. I'd love to get the message out there, and it would mean a lot if you can share it. And finally, I just wanted to offer you, as a valued listener, a free copy to the Roadmap to Real Estate Investing, which is a document that I've put together which helps you identify what strategy would best suit your needs at this current time. You go over certain things that are included in this document step by step, and it'll hopefully provide you with some clarity. So have a look. You can go to www.welloff.ca/guide to download your free copy.